The 3 Mile Island Disaster: Conflict and Compromise between the United States and the Nuclear Energy Industry.
Good evening. The world has never known a day quite like today. It faced the considerable uncertainties and dangers of the worst nuclear power plant accident of the atomic age. And the horror tonight is that it could get much worse.
The 3 Mile Island disaster created a nationwide conflict and debate on March 28, 1979, when the water pump for the second nuclear reactor failed and spread radiation to over 30,000 people in the area. This in turn compromised the U.S.'s dedication to nuclear power when the public lashed out in protest and public support fell from an all-time high of 69% in 1977 to 46% in 1979. Since then, the U.S. has transitioned to traditional forms of energy such as oil and natural gas to renewable energy today. On December 21, 1898, Marie Curie, a French physicist and chemist, discovered the element called radium. This element is very radioactive and was a part of the first nuclear chain reaction in 1942 created by Enrico Fermi. The chain reaction was a very important part in the making of a nuclear plant. Like other power plants, nuclear plants use heated water. This creates steam and turns turbines to generate electricity. The main difference between other power plants and a nuclear power plant is the heat source. The chain reaction boils the water, where coal, oil, or gas heats water in other plants. Although the start of nuclear energy was many years earlier, nuclear energy was rapidly growing in the U.S. in the 1960s. The USA is the world's largest producer of nuclear power, accounting for more than 30% of worldwide nuclear generation of electricity. The first nuclear energy plant in the U.S., created by Westinghouse, was started in 1960 and was being operated by 1992. By the end of the 1960s, orders were being placed for new reactor units of more than 1,000 megawatts capacity, and a major construction program got underway. In 1968, construction of the 3 Mile Island power plant started in Londonderry Township, Pennsylvania, on a small island in the Susquehanna River just south of the state capital in Harrisburg. The second of the two reactors was finished in 1978 and put online to produce nuclear energy. On March 28, 1979, at 4 a.m., the second reactor broke down due to an electrical or mechanical failure. This could have been due to a maintenance or a control room issue. The employees at TMI were unaware of the malfunction, and the control room instruments did not show the leak of the cooling water to the reactor core. When they found the leak, the Nuclear Regulatory Commission, or the NRC, was forced to get involved. When the alarms finally sounded, engineers saw that the water pumps had shut down. Unfortunately, they didn't know that the backup pumps were not working either. They had to find the problem fast or radiation would leak from the containment building where the reactor 2 was at. This building kept radiation from leaking into the environment even in a meltdown. Even the many workers at the plant were unaware of the problem that was happening. John Callahan, a construction worker, was working on Reactor 2 at around 6 a.m. He stopped when he realized a puddle of water was on the floor. He was confused to why there was water. If the inside of the reactor was not kept very clean, there could be a disaster. Another worker went running by, yelling at everyone to get their equipment and leave. They realized that the water was radioactive and anyone who touched it could get very sick or even die. On March 28th, a hydrogen bubble formed when the metal tubes holding the nuclear fuel pellets had a chemical reaction. This caused a high pressure of hydrogen gas. Soon, on March 30th, workers and operators worked to remove the bubble by periodically opening the vent valve on the reactor cooling system pressurizer. On March 29th and 30th, plant workers used pipes to release the pressure the radioactive gas built on the containment building. The crisis ended on Sunday, April 1st, when experts showed that the bubble could no longer explode because they had reduced its size. Many people were and still are concerned about long-term health impacts from potential disasters, and nuclear energy struggles to this day to be seen as a source of competitive energy. Many people were scared about the amount of radiation released and were worried of the health effects that could have happened.
Late today in Washington, the NRC said, quote, "There's a hell of a lot of radiation in the reactor building," adding that radiation had penetrated the 4-foot-thick walls of that building and was detected as far as 1 mile away. Officials of Metropolitan Edison conceded some workers may have been contaminated, but they insisted this was not a serious accident. They said only 1/10 the amount of radiation needed for a general alarm escaped.
The Nuclear Regulatory Commission said that the amount of radiation released was 1 milliram more than the amount in an X-ray, which is 6 milliram. Even though the public was evacuated from the area, there was not enough radiation released to hurt any of the 2 million people around TMI at the time. Many environmental and health tests were done to see if the people were affected by the radiation. The Pennsylvania Department of Health followed the health of the 30,000 people who lived within 5 miles of 3 Mile Island. They did this for 18 years until there was no evidence of unusual health effects. Although there was no concern about health issues, there was concern about radioactive iodine that could potentially show up in cow's milk within a week or two of the accident. The reactor was shut down after the accident. It took 12 years and $973 million to decontaminate the low levels of radiation. There were 10.6 megaliters, or 2,800,224 U.S. gallons, of radioactive coolant that was evaporated. There were also about 100 tons of damaged radioactive fuel that was put into 342 canisters and taken to the U.S. Department of Energy facility in Richland, Washington. This accident had caused the Nuclear Regulatory Commission to watch more carefully on future nuclear power plants in the U.S. Because of this, there would be no nuclear power plants created or approved in the U.S. for 30 years as there was more natural gas plants being built. Since the day of the accident, nuclear energy's competitive edge has been lost to other energy resources, even though it is still a reliable energy resource. As of August 2017, there are 61 commercial nuclear power plants with 99 reactors running in the U.S. As the accident just passed its 39th anniversary this year, it is said to be closing in 2019.
The announcement comes after more than 5 years of losses on the single-unit power plant, as well as its failure in a recent capacity auction to sell power into the regional grid.
Nuclear energy has been losing to the boom of natural gas sources, which has slashed energy prices in markets around the U.S. It has brought attention to the U.S. as it left many people terrified of nuclear power and its compromise to its dedication to nuclear energy for decades to come. The impact of the 3 Mile Island accident on the nuclear power industry since 1979 to today has risen to a level that no other nuclear disaster has. In the end, the 3 Mile Island disaster was one of the most serious conflicts in U.S. commercial nuclear power plant history.